Good morning, Max. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Julien, how are you? How's Paris? How is this wonderful evening in Paris?
It is a very good evening. Everything is quite right at the moment, and you may have noticed there is a small change to our usual setup. Today we are both sitting in a therapy chair and not lying on the couch.
I did notice that. What, pray tell, what is this? What is the implication of this subtle change?
So today we're going to do things slightly different. First, we are going to have a story that is not a Max story and is not a Julien story either, but it's not going to be a mailbag story per se. It's a story you and I both reacted to on LinkedIn that was brought up by our dear friend Stephen Lee. It's not his story even. So typically the kind of story we would not take, but I think there is quite a few things to discuss here. So I thought, hey, you know what? Let's discuss it. Let's see where that brings us.
I like that. I obviously the way I jumped in on LinkedIn about it, it was interesting to me, and so I think it's a good story to talk to. Why don't you kick us off? What's tell us all about it, Julien?
All right. So this time I'm not reading from a script, working from memory. So keep me honest on the story. But basically, making it simple, that's a story of a lady going to. It's not a palace, but it's not a cheap hotel either. That's a pretty fancy one, at least a pretty high-priced one. And in the bathroom, you have those bottles of both shower gel and shampoo, which, it's both in one, that are locked to the wall. Those that you can't take away.
Right, the big dispensers.
Exactly. So long day, she gets to the shower, turn on the water, get ready to wash. And at the time she presses on the dispenser's head, realize there is no soap in it. And because it's a locked bottle, the only thing she can actually do is dry up, get out of the shower, call the front desk, and then ask for a refill. And unfortunately, this person had to wait roughly 15 minutes before someone would show up, unlock the whole thing, refill the bottle, put it back on the wall, leave the room before she could actually take a shower. So very simple, very short story, something that we can probably all relate to because I guess we all take showers. I mean, I'm French, but I guarantee whatever the stories say, we do take showers.
We hope.
So, yeah. So we do. And yeah, an interesting story, because I think the other thing I could add to that story is additional twist that Stefan brought to it, which was, is it a customer experience flow? Is it that the bottle is locked to the wall because of cost saving, preventing people from stealing it away? Is it because of convenience? Is it because the whole experience was designed this way from the beginning? Is that a good experience? Should it have been done differently? So it's more around, obviously the experience was not good, but what I'd like to get to is two things. Why was it designed this way, and what should have been done so that the experience could have been better? Should we start there?
Yeah. Do you mind if we do the second one first? Because I think the first one has, I can see it's going off in more directions there, and the core issue of how is this handled is so awful. What is worse than not being able to complete your shower? B, I guess the only thing would be you need to not complete your shower. somehow go somewhere in a little hotel room and have someone else come into your sanctum and go fill a soap bottle. That's just intrusive in the worst imaginable sort of way. So as a customer, as a CX, this to me is such a horrific fail. I'll just stop there, and I've got a couple other thoughts, but I'll let you.
So to your first point, could have been worse. I think worse than not having soap is having soap but no longer having warm water to wash it off.
Fair enough. You're right. I've had the cold shower I had to take because the hot water ran out. Ouch. Yeah, that is worse.
But yeah, pretty bad, because the basic expectation from a hotel, the big difference between booking a actual traditional hotel and renting Airbnb or whatever other services you have out there is that you have extra service. And part of the extra service is a clean room. You are not expected to double check everything. You expect that the room is clean. You have clean bed sheets, you have towels, and you have the very basic things. Some hotels will provide you with toothpaste and all of this, but at the very least, they should provide you with soap, especially when you see there's a soap bottle, right? If there is a dispenser in the shower, it's not your job as a customer to go and double check, is there anything in that dispenser? That's basic. So the fact that this is missing is a big fail. The other fail that I see here is shit happens, right? They didn't refill for whatever reason. That's a fail. But taking 15 minutes to refill it when you know that the person is probably waiting, probably wet, probably not
dancing in a towel. Yeah.
It's probably something that could have been done better here as well.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, because you're just giving that customer 15 minutes of dreading that someone's about to come up into her room while maybe she dried off and got dressed, but that's just as bad. And just, shivering. And I just have this image of this poor woman shivering in a towel, waiting for this to happen. You're right, shit happens. But it just seems like this is shit that shouldn't happen. You can, those things are locked in. So you can only, I guess a little kid could pump one out in a day. But for the most part, you should just check that every day. It's, that should just be part of the maid's routine. And B, probably have a fail-safe of once a week, you do some sort of a backup check. It's the sort of shit that should happen. Maybe it does happen very, very rarely, and it's so bad that's why it happens very rarely. And when it happens, you hear about it because, my gosh, that was awful.
I think we should. So first, I'd like to contextualize it a little. Meaning that's not the end of the world, right? That's a bad experience, but it's not having a car crash or anything. It's just waiting 15 minutes. But from a company perspective, 15 minutes is long enough to write a dreadful TripAdvisor review or contacting friends and saying how terrible the experience is.
Yeah, never going here again.
The second thing is, again, you're not booking Airbnb and coming with your own products. You're booking a hotel, and you're not booking a cheap hotel. So you have some level of expectation, rightfully. And therefore, that's a fail. So in terms of what could have been done better, I really see two different things here. And then we could potentially talk about whether it was designed this way, whether it was the right thing to do. But what could have been done better? You mentioned it, the routine. So assuming that is the maid's duty to review this, typically they have a checklist of, did you do the bed? Yes. Did you vacuum? Yes. Did you clean the windows? Yes. You have all these things. It's kind of weird if you don't have a refill the soap or double check the dispensers but as part of the checklist. So either it's missing or it's not being followed. So it's either a process issue or an enablement / training / supervision kind of issue. What can happen? Maybe they had the right enablement, maybe they just forgot. People tend to forget. That's what happens. But then comes the second part, which is waiting for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think part of the front desk guidelines should be not every request comes with the same level of priority. And while it's always good to come as a first come first serve basis, I called first, I should be serviced first. There are situations where there is a little bit more of a time constraint than others, and they should probably analyze the fact that here we have an issue that should be prioritized. I should send someone within the next 3 minutes, not the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. There's no, I keep trying to come up with, I can see how it could take that long just to get a hold of the right person, but they all have walkie-talkies and stuff. That's, yeah, it is inexcusable. That should have been immediate. If they couldn't get a hold of somebody, they should have just come up from the desk, although maybe they wouldn't have the soap, but somebody should have figured out a way to do that. Because, sitting here in our beautiful little therapy office, 15 minutes isn't that long, right? We're comfortable, everything's fine. But 15 minutes when you're dripping wet, that's an eternity. That's just really, you're right. That is a completely unacceptable amount of time.
And I like the spin that Stefan brought to it, which was it by design or was it a mistake? And
yes,
he specifically talked about, in many hotels these days, you have those little bottles that, yes, they are here to clean yourself up, but they are also here for customers to steal because we know they're going to take it away. So you have those two extremes. You have those small bottles that are a nice gesture for customers to take away instead of stealing the bed sheets or other covers or whatever it is, which is absolutely terrible from an environmental perspective, but it's a great gesture for the customer. Probably not great from a financial perspective as well, but let's leave that for a second. And then you get the other extreme, those that provide a dispenser and lock it to the wall to make sure you're not going to leave with it, which is, I guess, when you do this is because it happened in the past, but is it really worth it? And the big question that Stefan was asking was, why did they decide to design the experience this way? And was there something missing from the design itself? What's your take on that?
I got a bunch of takes. First, the little bottles thing. When my daughter was young and I went on a business trip, if I brought her 3 or 4 shampoo and conditioner bottles, she was so excited. She just would be, I didn't even have to buy a toy. She would just be giddy. So, yeah, as your daughter gets a little older, something to remember from business trips, although you may not be able to. So that is absolutely something I appreciated when hotels did that. As I got older, we'd sometimes go to a very fancy hotel and they'd have some really nice stuff that my wife would understand. And, I'm like, whatever, I wouldn't steal it for myself. But sometimes for my wife, it's like, I love this brand. Wow, they actually have that there. The really fancy ones will use that. So it's definitely, a marketing spin, and boy, will they sell it in the gift shop for an inflated price as well, if you really like it. So I think that's a very real thing. The other argument I've heard that isn't just a raw, we don't trust our customers or it's a cost savings is, and you kind of alluded to this, the environmental. All those little plastic bottles end up as little bitty chips in the middle of the ocean. And, there's a real problem of plastic pollution. So I've seen hotels talk about doing this for the environmental benefit. But I've also seen hotels talk about if you want to opt out of maid service, that's great for the environment. It's like, seriously, no, that's a labor saving for you. Don't try to spin that so I think brands hide behind this is good environmentally, but I do think reducing the number of those little plastic bottles, I don't see a downside to that. I think that does make sense. But, oh man, you can't then leave somebody dripping in the shower with no soap.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think I think it's all about the DNA. It really depends on what your company stands for. If what you care about is a very unique boutique kind of experience and having this fancy brand and offering bottles. Not all bottles are made of plastic, actually. There could be ways to do it that is somehow environmentally friendly.
That would be a good way to go.
So you have this option, and it's probably for slightly more expensive / fancy / custom style of hotels, boutique. And then you have the other way, which is to go with the standard bottle, or even more extreme, the locked dispenser. And I think there's nothing wrong with that option. I think you would probably not expect it from a fancy hotel, but hey, why not? That could be a very good product. But if you go with that route, you have to be absolutely sure that you get the right protocols in place so that it is refilled properly. So it's all about designing the experience. I think at the root, no experience is wrong. You can go either way and you can get it absolutely right and satisfy your customers. I think it's really about how you construct that experience and how you make sure that from the beginning to the end, it's constructed properly. And when we talk, you and I are both working in the digital cloud world, and we know very well about multi-touch, people browsing online and calling a phone number, sending an email. And it's so difficult nowadays to have a clear picture of a customer journey because there are so many branches in any mapping. But here is pretty straightforward. I mean, taking a shower, there are not that many routes to consider. And therefore, making sure the bottle is refilled should be pretty straightforward. So if you've built that experience, if you made that decision, that's part of your DNA, that's part of your message, maybe you are environmentally friendly, maybe that's your message, or maybe it's all really about cost savings so that we can reduce the costs for your room, or maybe that's whatever that DNA, whatever story. But build a...
I would be willing to bet the real bargain brand hotels, hotels feature those pretty prominently these days. It only would make sense because it's a small cost savings, but it's hey, we're working for you here. We're keeping things. We're all in this together, buddy.
Exactly. But it's all just about building the experience. So knowing that you got to refill it, knowing that shit happens, and therefore, if it happens, do we have someone who is able to work very quickly to fix it? Do we have that walkie-talkie you were talking about that we can talk to our staff as efficiently as possible? Do we have a bunch of stock of those refills in the storage room? How efficiently can we make it happen? And that's just about thinking about the entire customer journey, and that's probably what's missing here. And that's true. I mean, we're taking that example with a shower, but it really works with anything really, and not just in the hotel industry.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. This is a very short journey. 2 steps from the bedroom into the shower, another 2 steps into the bathroom, another 2 steps into the shower. But knowing that journey, and you're right, shit happens. So the journey needs to not be, you need to have all the fail paths known in the journey as well, not just everything went just right. It's always been part of the journey or the customer experience is, how do you recover when things aren't right?
And I think that's something that is not just for the CX world, that's for many jobs, but something that people working in CX are very familiar with is Murphy's Law. Things are going to go wrong sooner or later.
Right.
You got to have a plan B. You need to have that fail safe in place that, if this happens, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it quickly.
Yeah. And clearly that broke down. If they're going to look us in the eye and say, hey, 15 minutes, not so bad, I'm not sure I'd want to stay there again. And I'm sure they wouldn't do that. I'm sure they were very unhappy it ended up that way.
Well, that was a short but sweet story. Thank you, Stefan, for sharing. Thank you, Max, for co-chairing the CX therapy today.
Yeah, this was a good way to go. I think it was a good story and had, a simple story with some implications. Gives us a lot to kick around.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Max. I wish you have a beautiful week. Stay dry, and talk to you in a week time.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks, Julien. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.